This is what happens, is what they're trying to say is we don't have studies, right? We don't have a meta-analysis, right, on this right now, that there's an advantage of men and women's sports. Well, that's true, because typically speaking, you don't tend to gather a ton of scientific data or conduct research on something that is obvious, universally, unilaterally agreed upon. So NPR, National Public Radio, just so you know. Last week, the World Athletics Council, they announced that there was going to be a ban on transgender. When I say that, I mean men competing in women's sports at elite sporting events.
The council has agreed to exclude male to female transgender athletes who have been through male puberty from female world ranking competitions from March the 31st this year. However, in order to do further research into our transgender eligibility guidelines, we will be establishing a working group whose remit will be to consult specifically with transgender athletes to seek views on competing in athletics, to review and maybe commission additional research where there is currently limited research, and to put forward recommendations to council.
And that clip ends with Gryffindor!
You imagine having to give that statement with a straight face. Like, we will see if men are indeed stronger, faster, and better at sports than women. Who knows?
Yes. It remains to be seen, but we have our sneaking suspicions that those with cocks, wait for it now, go with me, have an advantage over those with gashes.
Stay tuned.
How many women are transitioning into men and like whooping men's ass in sports?
Maybe in wrestling, because they have some extra submissions. Mother's milk. That actually happened one time. I watched a female. Anyway. So
keep going.
This guy, Sebastian Coe, added, but we must continue to take the view that we must maintain fairness for female athletes above all other considerations. All right, so NPR was particularly mad about this. And this is what they claimed. And this is, I want to get into a logical fallacy alert. And by the way, all the references are available at loudwithcrowder.com. Just so you know, we've done many segments on this, but we focused before on sort of like the biological realities, like the hormone differentials, right, that you would see between the two. Things like bone mineral density, things like muscle mass, wingspan, grip strength, all of that. So we're not going to get into that today because that wouldn't refute what NPR, National Public Radio, funded by your tax dollars, a propaganda network, and by the way is going under, what they tried to claim. And this is very important because I want you to comment below as I do this, see if you see the sleight of hand here as it happens before we get there. NPR cited a lack of research to prove that males have an advantage. This is Juliana Kim writing for NPR, who I'm sure is a blast at parties. At the center of the issue is whether transgender women athletes have a physical advantage over other female competitors, even after lowering their testosterone levels. But there is limited scientific research involving transgender athletes. Logical fallacy alert. Okay. This is something they do, right? And this is something that sometimes people refer to as the reverse nirvana fallacy alert, which is, well, hold on a second. It hasn't happened yet. Men dominating women's sports, every time they enter, they do significantly better. So there isn't enough proof that it would be catastrophic. So let's just try it. Let's do it. That would be like me saying, well, it hasn't, we haven't seen an increase in gun crime or accidents yet by shipping a firearm to every man, woman, and child, regardless of their age in this country. So let's try it. Let's see what happens if we FedEx everybody a Walther. We don't have any results yet because common sense, right at that point, you'd have to make an inference. Hold on, if someone has no experience with a gun, someone has no reason to purchase and doesn't want a firearm, it's probably not a good idea to send it, especially UPS because it'll show up broken.
It's a bad idea.
So we've done, again, plenty of segments, the advantage, muscle mass, bone density, wingspan, grip. You can go and check the references.
Yeah.
But what's happening here is, and I don't know if you guys wanted to kind of put I think I wrote something, and I don't think I have it on the map. But look, this is what happens, is what they're trying to say is we don't have studies, right? We don't have a meta-analysis, right, on this right now, that there's an advantage of men and women's sports. Well, that's true, because typically speaking, you don't tend to gather a ton of scientific data or conduct research on something that is obvious, universally, unilaterally agreed upon. For example, we don't have any scientific studies that I know of, or certainly not a lot, that leaving an oven on with the door open, for example, would be more likely to cause injury to a child than closing it and locking it. Because no one actually has a problem with that, right? No one would try and rebut it. It's what we used to refer to as common sense. Now, another example. this is true, by the way. They're saying we don't have specific case studies and a control group of men competing with women that we've conducted where over the course of years. No, that's true. But we can look at all of the other issues that we've discussed: bone density, muscle mass, right, lung capacity, all of this. Mm-hmm. We can look at those numbers, compare them to women, and say, okay, hold on a second. Right now, we have to make an inference. Just like when I look at a glowing hot stove, I look at it, I go, oh, it's glowing red. I'm making an inference that it's very likely hot. And no one would assume that that is an illogical or an incorrect inference.
It's science.
You need to verify it afterwards, but here's the beauty of it. We have all of the biological data that we need, and now we also have sort of a meta-analysis and some case studies. So let's go to, we'll go this in descending order. Number 3, okay. So this is, I don't know if you've been to this website. It's Boys versus Women. I hadn't seen this until recently.
And it's like that
like
for a purpose. It's not men versus women.
Right. It's boys versus women. So again, we have all of these other data.
Versus women.
Today, we're just going to focus on actual results in competition.
Yeah.
So they compared the times from 2016 high school boys, the New Balance outdoor meet. This is from a meet specifically, to the 2016 women's Olympic times. Again, this is scientific, right? So you can look at the times.
Yes. High school boys.
And say, okay, how do they order? Not a single female Olympian would have made the final in the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 400 meter, the 800 meter, the 400 meter hurdle, the 4x400 relay. Not one female Olympian versus high school boy.
That's terrible.
And we're not even saying that they wouldn't have won. They wouldn't have made the final.
They
which
wouldn't
is,
have
I think,
placed.
9.
Yeah.
Yes.
9 people make the final. I think I off by 1 or plus or minus 1. 9 people. It wouldn't have been the top 9.
Or as NPR says, not sufficient scientific data. Now let's go to swimming. I know what you're thinking. Well, if they did horrible in track and field swimming, obviously, women would do better. I don't know why. Fatter, more buoyancy. In swimming, comparing the Speedo Junior Men's Championship to the 2016 Women's Olympics.
Red Tide.
No female Olympian would have made the final in the 50-meter freestyle, the 200-meter freestyle, the 100-meter backstroke, the 200-meter backstroke, the 100-meter breaststroke. Talk about that for irony. You wouldn't make the breaststroke?
It's your event.
The 200-meter butterfly, the 4x100-meter freestyle relay, the 4x200-meter freestyle relay. Of 48 possible medals, female Olympians would win only 1, and it would have been a crappy bronze.
Women suck.
At competing against men,
Competing against men. But here's the thing. We've stripped women of what it is that they have that is incredible, that men can't. For example, not only birthing children, because now we have to say birthing people.
Well, that's true, yeah.
So we've given them the opportunity to compete against men in sports where they get smoked. And then we say, by the way, the stuff, the kind of trump cards that you had, like, a womb, we're going to give that to men too. Why? For women's rights, I guess.
I love this because it's like, we're going to do some in-depth research here and get to the very bottom of this situation. And a Google search, I think, will do.
And this is why also when people just say, just sit down and talk and do and just, no, I believe in preparation, right? I'm almost paranoid about preparation. How great would it have been if there was some kind of a live debate and the NPR person says, let me read the quote again. The quote was, well, there is limited scientific research involving elite transgender athletes. And someone just raised their hand and said, yeah. I heard what you said, and I understand, but I would refute that. Why? I disabuse you of that notion, NPR bitch. And how do you disabuse me? We're going like parliamentary, right?
Yeah, it has to be, yes.
Well, I present to you, not a single female Olympian versus high school boys would have made the final in... Wait, hold on, let me take this down, all right? Do you have your paper and pen handy? Yes. 100 meter, okay? 200 meter, okay? 400 meter, okay? 800 meter, okay? 400 meter hurdle, okay? 4x400 relay, okay? And it's even worse for swimming. How much data do you need? I disabuse you, dumb NPR bitch.
It seems like those are all of the fast ones.
But you can't do it. Yes. Well, wait. Which races did you? Oh, hold on a second. Let me shorten this for brevity is the soul of wit. All of them. Oh, well, I believe I'm noting what we might refer to as a trend.
Yes.
I love that they pulled these examples, but wait, it does get worse.
Yes, it does get worse. The numbers are absolutely...
That was number 3.
I know, they're absolutely insane, almost as insane as, Kanye's advisor. What? I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Why is he even here? I didn't say anything about you. Oh, come on.
That's out of line.
A little bit.
Don't say pack.
Jeez.
We don't travel in packs. No. Some of us do.
Although we certainly don't see you in schools. Perfect. Here's another case study. Women's soccer.
Oh, boy.
Which is even more concrete because I assume that all the men involved are gay. So, 2017, the U.S., you know this, the U.S. women's soccer team lost 5-2 to the FC Dallas, I guess, U15 boys team. At first, I thought that was that submarine movie.
Do you know what that means? Under. The U is for under.
Under 15? I thought it was 15, so they could. Some of them were 14-year-olds?
I don't think it allows 15. It might be 15, but I think it's mostly under is what that means. We can be fact checked, but either way, 15, 14, 30, whatever.
I know what you're saying. People say, hold on, you're saying this out of, you could match up any teams, right? Well, the same female team that lost to under 15, they went on to win the World Cup in 2019 and bitch about how they're not paid as much as the men. It's like, hold on a second. I would argue that you are paid actually the entirely appropriate amount because it should be comparable to the FC Dallas under 15 boys team. How much are they making?
By the way,
Who did you lose to?
Listen, soccer in the United States is not nearly what it is around the rest of the world. It would have been like the under 10-year-olds in Brazil and Spain and Italy and England. Like, it's incredible that they lost. 14-year-old boys beat the best women's team in the world by a mile. 5-2 is like you're running up the score.
You lose.
Yeah, they did have to implement the mercy rule because Megan Rapinoe started showing her enlarged. Anyway, it's a good point, Gerald, but there's limited scientific evidence. Limited scientific evidence. According to NPR.
Gerald!
Limited scientific evidence.
Fine, we'll do studies.
Get it correct. Limited scientific evidence. The team that won the World Cup lost to under 15-year-old boys.
The best women's
That's just
soccer
anecdotal.
team ever.
Yes, it's anecdotal. We went through track and field. We went through swimming. Of course, we have numbers on cycling, which I don't even feel like getting into today because it's embarrassing. And then, of course,
Cycling was funny, though.
Swimming. So keep in mind, though, this is still slightly better than the Australian women's team did in 2016.
The Australian women's national team, who were ranked number 5 in the world at the time, lost 7-0 to a team of 15-year-old boys.
It happens everywhere. It's a pandemic.
Yes, it's a pandemic.
Oh, man.
How could you possibly make the argument? It's unbelievable. These are the best people in the world at this. And by the way, that was the same women's team that was fighting for equal pay with the men's team. Listen, tell you what, I'll pay you what the under 15 boys get paid from Texas
nothing.
that you lost to. How about that?
Paid in sandwiches.
Yes. No, they should pay us in sandwiches.
That's fair. Yeah. Juice boxes.
Yeah, well, then you get your pay. You're on retainer. You pay sandwiches, the soccer's incidental. So here, let's go to the number one case study, because I know you're saying, well, that's soccer. Well, that's swimming. Well, those aren't famous athletes. I want to take the best of the best of the best. I want to take the people who would eat things that would make a Billy go puke. Say, all right, Denny. So Venus and Serena Williams, and they look really mannish.
They do.
Yeah.
It's okay. They just look that way.
And this is something that's famous, but there's some subtext that you may not know. At the 1998 Australian Open, this German, Karsten Brock, which sounds like a female name, but it's not. Karsten Brock defeated Venus, and Serena Williams beat them back-to-back. Beat Serena 6-1, beat Venus 6-2. At the time, Karsten was, I know you're saying, well, the best man's going to beat the best woman. He was ranked 203rd.
By the way, it's not good.
No. And he gave himself a handicap of only using one serve. And he was drunk. And he lit a cigarette at the change of side.
Listen, now, I know that sounds odd, but he does play most of his matches drunk, and smoking really helps him recharge.
Right,
So.
yes. It's like, was it drunken boxing, the Jackie Chan thing?
Makes you better.
Okay, to be fair, he was drinking beers and smoking cigars on the golf course. It was like, oh, sorry, I forgot I have to go beat two bitches.
I'll be back.
I can't believe they agreed to do that.
Well, and to be fair, here's the thing. You notice it's not usually like elite female athletes saying it. Sure, you have like Megan Rapinoe, right? But that's why I say it's not elite female athletes, because Serena addressed this. By the way, she acknowledged it, and I say this because this is. Can you think of any more? Any like a woman who? Yeah, come on, Serena. Like they've got. I mean, the point is,
got all kinds of games.
Got all kinds. Serena did address it and said, basically, of course, the best female athlete, arguably, of all time.
Well, actually, it's funny
that.
because Andy Murray, he was been joking about myself and him playing a match.
Better delts than I do.
I'm like, Andy, seriously, like, are you kidding me? Because for me, tennis and men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's true.
Honestly,
It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game.
She means better.
Yeah.
She just named
harder.
Which is fine.
They hit harder.
She just named everything that makes an athletic endeavor athletic.
Yeah.
She's like, they're faster, they're stronger, they have better coordination. Yeah, exactly. But we should be paid the same. Look, here's the thing. Let's remove sex from it. Let's remove gender from it, which, by the way, are the same. I don't care what you say. Let's remove that from the equation. LeBron is paid a lot more than, I don't know anything about basketball, someone else. Why? Because he's faster, he's stronger, he's more powerful, he scores more. So people pay the best better than they pay the mediocre. So in men's sports, you have the best, right? They're paid the most. You have the Michael Jordans, you have the Wayne Gretzkys, you have the LeBron James, right? You have the Tom Bradys, you have the Muhammad Alis, right? You have the George Foremans, you have the Mike Tysons. They're paid a lot. And then the people who aren't as good, right? So you have those male athletes. Then you have the mediocre. Now, and it's going to go for a while. You have the best woman. So the best female WNBA player should be paid significantly less than than John Stockton, let alone Scottie Pippen, let alone Michael Jordan, because Scottie Pippen was paid less than Michael Jordan.
Well, and this is one of the sports where people do watch women's tennis, and so therefore they get paid a lot more than you would think, like proportionally,
right?
Than in other sports. But then they don't have headlines like ESPN keeps like foisting WNBA on me, and it's like, watch this lady as she gets through and makes the layup.
Yes. But when she does it, she makes it, but she goes,
That's not an appealing headline.
Well, it's like, I watch UFC. It's the one where they mix them in, like UFC events, and there's some great female fighters.
Yeah.
But they're like a handful.
Yeah.
And they're like, and of course we have Amanda Nunes fighting, who's been fighting for 15 years, as a 9-time world champion, 2-division world champion, who is fighting some bitch who was working at the Yankee Doodle Candle Company last week, but she's going to try her hand at it, and it's not competitive.
Right, yeah.
So it's not fun to watch. Yeah. If it's competitive, right, people will watch women's sports, but generally they're not, and it's also unentertaining. They're not entertaining because it's bad.
It's very not entertaining.
You know who doesn't watch women's sports?
Who?
Women. Well, you guys have been in the gym, right? I'm sure you've seen some strong women where you're surprised, like, oh, she's pretty strong. But when you say that, if you were to compare it to a man.
Yeah, it's not as strong.
Yeah.
Not in the same league.
No. I mean, if you look at like the world.
And that's okay. That's why we have women's sports, so that you can compete against people. That's why we separate sports by age group when you're growing up, because it's an unfair advantage if somebody is more developed and better coordinated than you because they've had more time on earth. That's why 5-year-olds don't play with 15-year-olds.
Right.
It makes perfect sense everywhere, I guess. But here.
You're absolutely. That's why Larry Flint wasn't in the NBA All-Star game.
That's the reason?
Yeah. I'm just saying, he just wheels in when he's 70. Ah! What? I don't want to be with Malone. I don't know what that means. All right. So we've gone through 3 different case studies. All references are available at louderwithcrowder.com. But, of course, being the scientific minds that we are here, we wanted to test our own hypothesis ourselves. So we've set up the office gym now, and let's check in to see what results we get. I don't know that we had the proper control group.
Yeah, that's the lightest weight I could find.
Yeah. Sorry, Kim. Pretty
be
sure
back.
Aetna doesn't cover that.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover sketch.
She signed a waiver.
Those one things
I
are
have a
heavy,
story
man.
on Rumble
Yeah.
about healthcare in this company, which is fun. By the way, employees here get healthcare, and it's a whole thing. All right. So here's the deal. Let me leave you with this. We have all of those examples, right? You have track. Okay, not even close. High school boys, right? You got swimming, not even close. You've got cycling, not even close. Then you have examples of the best tennis players ever. It's not even close. Then you have soccer. It's not even close. And then you combine that with what we know about biology regarding muscle mass, regarding even protein synthesis, recovering ability, bone mineral density, lung capacity, right? All of this, size of your heart, ability to pump blood, and you make an inference and say, yeah, we probably shouldn't have men beating up women. I think that's enough scientific evidence. But this is what the left does. They say, follow the science. They mean their science. Hold on a second. There's not enough scientific evidence to say that men are larger, stronger, faster than women. But we do. We might need to hit the YouTube button for an experimental mRNA vaccine that they knew at the time heads of pharmaceutical companies would induce myocarditis in young, healthy men. So one, we don't have enough data. The next one, put it in your body, please.
Valid point.
Yeah, we can't say that on YouTube, even though it was at the head of Moderna or Pfizer who they found out. Anyway, Rand Paul questioned the person. And
Moderna, I believe, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't talk about it for too long because the dump button will have
I
to be on
know.
forever.
Well, yeah, we just want you to go on over to Rumble.
Yes, we want you to head over to Rumble. All right.
Please.
And by the way, here's something else just to note while we're talking. NPR, by the way, they're about to fire a huge part of their company, 10% of the workforce, because they cited a lack of advertising. They'd be short $30 million. Keep in mind that this is an organization that is funded by taxpayers. No, not entirely, but I think 10 to 11%, which, by the way, does allow them to compete with other networks. Here's the funny thing about NPR, right? Every time I listen to NPR every morning. Every morning I listen to their news briefing. I listen to NPR. I listen to Reuters. I listen to CNN because I always want to listen. I always want to listen to what the left is saying. And almost every single NPR story has to fit in wedge in the white privilege issue, and under this construction of the systems that be systematic racism. But here's the thing: so they're alienating and they're trying to, of course, vilify white people. Who do you think is going to be donating to NPR?
It ain't niggas.
Dump button!
No, that's fine on YouTube. They're blocked. They can say it.
I don't think so.
Do you? Okay.
No, trust me, we're black. We can say it.
You know anybody your entire life who donated to NPR? Black people?
Black people don't even donate to Black Lives Matter. It's a bunch of rich white people doing that shit.
It's a bunch of. That is true. Actually.
It was a grift.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was a
Good on
very,
them.
very good grift. It was a very effective grift. They got a lot of houses.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.